Hello everybody, I'm Krasi Attasio, and today I will talk about marriage and timing of marriage, and for this I will use techniques of ancient astrology. Of course, before we see to estimate the timing of marriage, we need to see whether one will marry or not in this incarnation. So we basically first make analysis of the natal chart, and after that we use the timing techniques of the ancient astrology. So of course we need to estimate whether the chart is diurnal or nocturnal. Then we need to see either for masculine or feminine horoscope how Venus as the main significator of marriage is placed in the chart. We also as a second step, we need to see how the ruler or the rulers of the seventh house, which is the house of the relationships of the person, are placed, whether they are a detriment, whether they're exalted on a forward. All this we need to see. And then we need to calculate the lot, the part of the marriage, which was very much used a lot by the Arabic, especially in medieval times, by the Arabic astrologers. But these lots of marriage, of every area in our lives, they work very well. Then we need to see the perfections in order to estimate the timing of marriage. We can also look at the primary directions, but then this video will become too complex, and we also may look at the solar charts of the person. I will not go that far because already when calculating the lot of marriage, when seeing the perfections and which particular perfected year we will point towards marriage, we will have some basic information on the timing of marriage. Of course, we can also look at the rising times of the planets and the zodiacal signs of importance which are related to marriage, but this will maybe such techniques I will show you in other videos. So I will share my screen with you to show you a horoscope which I randomly picked, and I will analyze following simple, hopefully understandable steps. So I am sharing this chart. Usually, as you probably noticed, I am using equal house system of whole houses, 30 degrees each, which was the house system applicable for the fixed sidereal Babylonian zodiac. But for the matter of prediction, I am using the house system of Regiomontanus because it works brilliantly, and because he's like, for me, an example astrologer. He lived somewhere in the 16th century, and he made amazing predictions for Maximilian I at that time. He made one mistake, but in general, his house system, his system of using primary directions is absolutely phenomenal. So for the person of predictions, I am using the house system of Regiomontanus. So you can see, first, let's start with the placement of Venus being the main significator of marriage and love. Venus indeed is fallen in Aries, but is unafflicted and is having trine aspect with Mars, is morning star, which points at possible early marriage, and Venus is not denying marriage in this chart by no means. We may look at the term where Venus is, but this will be a subject of another video, because then I will make it too complex. Then we look at the seventh house. Who is ruling the seventh house? So this is the line of the descendant. Ascendant, you see, it passes through the 27-degree Pisces. So the first ruler is Jupiter and the second ruler is Mars. So we need to see how Jupiter and Mars are placed in this chart, and still doesn't yet matter whether this chart is of a man or a woman. I'll get into this. Now Jupiter is in a phase, well, Jupiter is fallen in Virgo, but this is not of such importance because Jupiter is very powerful. It's in a fast cosmic setting, so such Jupiter is so active that I believe the person will have marriage, and Jupiter is not afflicted, even has trine from Saturn, which is promising long marriage. And to me, Jupiter is not denying marriage. Mars is in Leo, again in Heliacophas, having aspect with Venus, not afflicted. To me, Mars is also not denying marriage. The moon is another significator of marriage, very important. Look at the moon. Well, the moon is fallen, which can be a reason to suspect possible issues with the marriage, but I will tell you a bit later about this. The moon is making applying aspect, applying sextile to Jupiter, and Jupiter is one of the rulers of the 7th house. So certainly this is a sign that the person will get married. So the more the moon approaches in the time, at one point it reaches sextile with Jupiter. So yes, the person will get married. Approximately when? Seeing that this quadrant here, where Jupiter and the moon are placed, this quadrant is responsible for the early age of the person. We can hope that the person will have quite early marriage. And this will happen around the age of 27, and I will also explain you why. Okay. Then the next very important step is to calculate the lot, the part of the marriage. So this is a part which is being calculated very easily, used very much in the ancient, by the ancient medieval Arabic astrologers, and this is a lot which, when we determine, depending on how the lot is placed in the horoscope, afflicted or not afflicted, we will know a bit more about the marriage. So this is the chart of a man. In this chart of a man, we calculate the lot of fortune by calculating the distance between the Sun and Venus, and then applying this distance from the ascendant. And there where it ends, the part of marriage falls. If the chart was of a man, we calculate the distance between Venus and Saturn. See, this is the Venus and Saturn. So you follow always the direction of the signs. So you take all this distance until you reach Saturn. You calculate the degrees. And when you get the distance, let's say the distance is 300 degrees, you start from here, you apply the 300 degrees, and you see where it ends if the chart was of a man. But this is a chart of a man. So for a man, the distance between the Sun and Venus. So this is the distance between Sun and Venus. I have my calculations. I will tell you where it ends. But before that, just a bracket to open. If you are looking at female's chart, of course, the position of Mars is very important. Even if Mars is not ruling the 7th house. If Mars is invisible or in a difficult heliacophase, oftentimes people don't have partners or have problems with their partners or have difficult marriages. So you need to investigate this. So I calculated the difference between the distance between the Sun and Venus. And if we roughly take that the Sun is in the 11 degree Aries and Venus is in the 27 degrees Aries, so we have like 14 degrees, 16 degrees distance. We calculate this distance here from the 27th degree Virgo, and we end up somewhere in the 14 degrees Libra. So the lot of fortune is somewhere here in the 14 degrees Libra, and we see if this point in Libra is afflicted or not, if this point is receiving harmonious aspects from other planets, and then we know more about the marriage. So the 14 degree Libra, somewhere here in the middle, is receiving the opposition of the Sun and Mercury, which can be a sign that later in his life, the wife may have problems when the person will be running such perfection, when this will be activated, or when there will be a primary direction also relevant to this particular place. But in general, due to this active quadrant here, which represents early life, we may conclude that the person will marry for sure and early in his life. Then we proceed with the perfections, and these are the time periods which are very easily to be calculated, and they make perfect sense. There is a lot of literature about calculating the perfections, but I will show you a very simple manner of doing this. So the perfection cycle are actually cycles, repetitive cycles that we are running. It's like when we are born, we're running the perfection of the first house, which is when from 0 age to 1, we are running the perfection of the first house. From 1 to 2 is the second, from 2 to 3 is the third, and so on and so on. And when we reach the 12th house, we repeat the same cycle again. And you will see, if you think for a while, that many events are having repetitive nature, and that many events that happened 12 years ago for you will happen again on the 13th year. So basically, we see that whether the 7th house will be activated, at which age, and then we see the ruler, whether the ruler will be activated. We see also whether, following the perfection cycle, we see whether one of the rulers, Jupiter or Mars, will be also activated through perfection, so that we can judge on the timing of the marriage. So when counting like this, I calculated that on the 27th perfected ascendant, it is like when I counted 0 to 1 Virgo and so on. When I reached the 27th of the perfections, I got activated Mars and Jupiter, and which rule here the 3rd house. And then I was absolutely not conclusive yet, but I had my expectations that on this particular age, because Jupiter is very important with the application of the moon to Jupiter, with ruling the 7th house, and also Mars, because Mars, you can see, rules Scorpio, because Mars is a co-ruler of the 7th house. I had my expectations that the person will get married on the age of 27, but this I couldn't conclude for certain until I didn't follow also the primary directions. So what happened is indeed that when the person became 27, because Jupiter as a ruler of the 7th and Mars as a co-ruler of the 7th were activated, the person indeed was married at this age. How this was confirmed to me? Well, this was reconfirmed by the primary direction which Jupiter made to the lot of fortune. I will make separate video on the primary directions. This is the most complex, actually, predictive technique in astrology, because this has nothing to do with transits. When you calculate the primary directions, they're of different types, and they're purely astronomical, because with the primary directions you see the diurnal motion of the sky, and they always result in events. However, even without concluding with the primary directions, we have all the hopes to conclude that because on the age of 27, the person will run cycle ruled by Mars and Jupiter, and because of the placement of Jupiter and Jupiter and the Moon, and because we already know that he will get married quite early, we can conclude that he or she, he in this case, will marry when this particular perfection will be activated. In this case, this will be the age of 27. How to see the development of his marriage? Well, we know now that a lot of marriage is somewhere here in the 14th degree Libra, afflicted by Saturn. We may expect when this particular square is activated that the person, his wife, may run certain problem, and also this could be related to her health. This is also reconfirmed by the retrograde Venus, which is not the reason for not getting married, but is the reason for possible future event with negative nature. And because the lot of fortune is afflicted by the Sun and Mercury opposition. Also, what is important is to see how many marriages the person will have. To me, the applying aspect, harmonious aspect of the moon to the ruler of the 7th house is a sign that the person will have only one marriage. How exactly the marriage will develop? Most probably, to one certain age, it will be harmonious, but then there is a possible problem which can be reconfirmed by the future perfections and also by primary directions, which I will show you in another video. Of course, there are also other techniques which you can use to check how every cycle, every year will look like. And these are also the solar revolutions, not the solar revolutions used by the modern astrology. There are solar revolutions which are classical, which take into consideration the exact degrees of the moon, but this will also be subject of another video. So this is basically a way that you can see very important thing, whether there will be marriage or not, and approximately when. If you want to reconfirm it, yes, you may go deeper with more complex techniques like the primary directions. You can use the solar revolutions. But for now, for making first conclusion, the perfections work very well. So remembering that we're running cycles, that our life starts with our first house and so on, and that we're repeating, we're running repetitive cycles is already of a very big help. So with this, I'm concluding this video. Thank you.